It was wicked, Rob. It was wicked.
Yes. On today's show, we look at the future of DC films. More great pro wrestling talk. Week 12 in the NFL. And is 2007 the best year ever for video games? All this and more as we reach our next stop, the PCC Multiverse. Just loves my intros. And we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. My name is Gerald Glasser from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate being part of the broadcast here today. And first off, I hope everyone has had a great Thanksgiving and is going to have a happy and safe Black Friday and great shopping weekend. It's just going to be an awesome weekend for family, for fun, for getting great deals and whatnot. But we've got a great show lined up for you as well. And who better to share it with me than my good friend? He is the man, the myth, the legend behind Rob McCallum Films. He is the creator of the awesome documentary Nintendo Quest. He's got so many other things lined up in the queue. The Kitty documentary, as far as the He-Man documentary coming up as well. And so much more. Box art. Oh my gosh, the list goes on and on. Plus, he's got a lot of great films that he has already that you need to check out. Just, for more information, robmccallumfilms.com. And who better to help me out with this today's show? It is Rob McCallum. What's going on, my friend?
I don't think I've ever heard my name so many times in an introduction or lead up or even my own bio. You really salt and peppered that segue introduction piece there. Way to go.
No problem, Rob McCallum. It's just great to have you on the show, sitting in for
wicked.
Josh. Wicked. There you go. Sitting in for Josh today.
That's a phrase from moving last. When did I move? In December? Almost a year ago.
Almost a year. I thought it was January.
No, it was December. December 18th. It was a week before Christmas.
Fair enough indeed.
That's how wicked it was.
Yes,
Gerald was uttering wicked as he was lugging cinder blocks to a moving truck, which then he had to unload from a moving truck and go up a flight of stairs with one
enjoyable.
in each. Just because I had to have a homemade stand-up desk.
Yes, this is true. But he's the one and only Rob McCallum. That's the way he goes. That's the way he works.
That's how I roll. That's who I am. I am here. Thanks for having me back. Sorry Josh couldn't be here, but every now and then it's nice to slide in, almost like I do this on a regular basis again, and take control of some of the reins. Josh, I'm sure, doesn't mind, and I appreciate his vacancy, and we'll make the most of the opportunity.
Absolutely. Just Josh will be back hopefully for the Pop Culture Cosmos show next week, but it's great to have you aboard on today's program. And what a great program it is. We've got a lot of things lined up for you. Mike Crockett from the Wrestling Podcast About Nothing. He's going to spew more wrestling knowledge just coming out at you with all the latest topics coming up in the pro wrestling world. Plus also as well, Tyler Baker previews the NFL in week 12. Just a lot of great stuff coming at you. But first, we want to talk a little bit about the movie scene because the box office is still going strong. You got Coco coming out you got Coco that's already out in theaters, the latest Pixar flick, and I'll tell you what, a lot of people have been looking forward to it. I actually have, because I think it will tell one of the better narratives that Pixar has had a chance to touch upon in quite some time. Your thoughts real quick on Coco and how you think it will perform this weekend.
Well, I think it's really interesting that Coco's coming out now. I think it's a year after Day of the Dead came out, which is kind of like one of those similar films in a similar vein, which Pixar is no stranger to when you flash back to, 1998, when A Bug's Life came out and Ants from DreamWorks Animation came out. Ants at the time was considered maybe the inferior compared to A Bug's Life, given the success of Toy Story. Bug's Life is pretty good in hindsight. It doesn't get the love that I think a lot of Pixar films get. So it'll be interesting to see where Coco sits. I also think that it's a bit of a marketing move to go after the Latino or Hispanic market with this story. And this is something that you've seen Hollywood do a lot, really kind of have catered releases to that demographic, and I think it's smart. I think it's nice to see storytelling that does bring in that culture of Mexico and really weave it into the historical landscape more than it is.
As to tell you what, I couldn't agree more. I just am so happy to see a story being told like this in a fashion that's going to be hopefully educating and also being very informative to a younger audience on a wider, more general basis. It's great when these stories get told to a, basically that it's going to be received by a vast, larger audience than maybe a more confined story or maybe a smaller production is concerned. So I really applaud Pixar for doing it. Got my friend Mark at Pixar, so just want to give him a shout out indeed. So well done as far as that's concerned. So it's, I tell you what, I'm hoping for great things, and it should do pretty good at the box office, looking about maybe for total Thanksgiving Day weekend for the 4-day weekend this time at the domestic box office around $70 million. And look, probably worldwide should do about 250, 300 million, close to what Justice League did last week.
You think it's going to do that well? That'll be interesting. Well, I can tell you this. I know my little guy who's just turned 3, he is very much into skeletons, even though we are several weeks past Halloween, and he likes skeletons and zombies. And he has a few figures from Coco that were, part of a dollar little coin machine, and he really enjoys them. So we will be taking him to his first theatrical movie experience, and it'll be a Pixar film. So don't think that the filmmaker and yours truly isn't making note of that to let him know down the road that that was his first film.
Well, that's awesome indeed, and I hope he gets a chance to really enjoy the film and embraces it and truly remembers it as a special moment in his life. But when I touch upon as far as worldwide numbers, I really think like I said, since it touches a lot on positive Latino and Hispanic cultural aspects, I really think the Latino and Hispanic markets across this great world of ours is probably just going to go in droves, and I think it's going to really support and stand by the film. And like I said, it's going to probably do around what Justice League did this past weekend, in my estimation. At least that's what it's targeting to worldwide. Speaking of Justice League did come out. It did earn close to $300 million in its first weekend worldwide, almost $100 million here domestically, but it's being seen as a slight disappointment because of the fact analysts were probably seeing it as probably a $110, $115 million opening here domestically and well over $300 million worldwide. So I ask you, touching upon that, and also the critical feedback, and also as well the social media back and forth as far as the reviews all over the place, with a lot of them being lukewarm, some being bad, the negative Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic ratings all over the place for it. I ask you, what is the future of DC films with the Justice League coming out like this? Are they still going to stay on course, or do you think some reworking or revamping needs to be done in order to get the DC films back on track the way it was right after Wonder Woman's great opening?
Well, it's funny you say that it was disappointing returns, and the first thing I thought of was DC must stand for disappointing cinema, because that's kind of what it feels like every week where we're talking about how the DC cinematic universe, or whatever it's called, is letting us down in one way or another. And with finally the release of Justice League, we can say, yes, this is another disappointment on the notch of the DC belt, and the trousers are I think falling off at this point, because that belt can't hold up the expectations anymore. I think everybody's going to continue to be curious to see if they can pull one off, if they can find a way to strike gold. But there's only so many Wonder Womans that you can create in the style of films that they're trying to make, and I don't know, like 95 is well below the 120 millions estimate that I had read on a few sites. So there are other articles saying that it could face a $50 to $100 million loss for Warner Brothers with the making of this film. So how can they continue in a financial sense alone, like dollars and cents, cost versus revenue, continue to make these films. They just simply can't, because they're not printing money at that point, and that's what movie studios like to do. They like to print money by releasing films. Now, the one way that you might see it shift is they've got this film, the origin stories are painfully out of the way. Now they switch to something like Flash, or Flashpoint, as I guess it's being called now, and you still have a bunch of the Justice League members in it. Then maybe you have a bunch of the League members in Aquaman, so that you get these quasi pseudo sequels to Justice League that are also these solo adventures from other films. I don't know. It's hard to say. I think that could be an interesting strategy. It might be a little bit more interesting than what some of the Marvel films are doing, where you have the Avengers, and then as the solo films take off, you don't see the other teams. But I think it's going to take something more genius than some shared screen time and awkward situations to resurrect the fandom, because every release kills off more the hardcore audience that they are desperately depending on.
I couldn't agree with you more on that, because it's just, I know audiences are getting, their patience is wearing thin, and their hopes were actually raised up by the success of Wonder Woman, and hopefully that was going to translate into some good vibes with Justice League. Yes, there was issues, obviously, with the disjointed nature of the dual directors that had to work on the film, because it was needed because of family issues with Zack Snyder. Also, as well, there's other things to consider as far as the actual story and the CG and all that other stuff. I know I went into a review. Tyler Baker had his review, and Josh had his review on our past 2 episodes. And if you want to check our total thoughts on that, definitely want to give our previous 2 episodes a listen to on the Pop Culture Cosmo networks everywhere. But I will tell you this, that I still have hope for Justice League because of the character interaction. I really, the one thing that I did enjoy about the movie itself, and the one thing that made it a lukewarm thumbs up to go see for me, was the interaction between the actual Justice League members themselves. Yes, there was some hammy and corny dialogue, but I enjoyed that aspect of it. And despite the fact that they were in such a disjointed, forgettable movie themselves, I see still hope for the future for the Justice League. But what I'm worried about is that, what I throw out there is that stuff like, if you want an Aquaman movie, or like you said, a Flashpoint movie, you can, or a Cyborg movie by themselves, those options pretty much with the lack of success of Justice League, pretty much you can throw that off the table, and now you're just going to be focusing on Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman, and Justice League films from this point forward.
Well, that was going to be my question, and I'm going to see Justice League tomorrow, which of course is part 1 of 2, I believe. Yeah. So my question is,
I think it would be 3, because I won't say why. There's something in the end credits that would make it number 2. For me, and then there was something mentioned near the beginning of the film that, in my estimation, would make it a number 3, maybe emulating some things from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, if you were able to pick up on that. And Alex, I mentioned that in our previous episode where we give a full review, but I don't want to spoil it for you, because
that is such a cryptic way of not being able to give me an answer. But I guess the thing I'm more curious about is, what is the likelihood of standalone Superman movies that have nothing to do with Justice League, and standalone Batman movies that have nothing to do with Justice League going forward? That's what I hope to figure out, because the question is how to get a Superman movie correct, and throwing Batman in there didn't work. I don't think throwing him in Justice League, I'm assuming he makes an appearance at some point, won't work. I just... yeah, I don't know. I think they got to find a good way to do Superman. I think that's the DC universe will depend on the successful creation of a Superman film that stands the test of time. There, I said it.
I can't blame you on that. But also as well, the Batman character with Ben Affleck, going either which way, is already hinting that he's not going to be long for the Batman character. and changing it to someone else again would be another shift. Maybe, well, it could be the jolt that the DC films needs, but then again, I like pretty much I like cohesiveness as far as within my storylines, and that includes the actors who portray these heroes. And at least this segment of the DC Films universe, I'd really like for him to be there, just out of cohesion sake for me. Having someone slip into the role of Bruce Wayne again, I'm not sure I'm exactly thrilled with that aspect, but oh well, it's they're going to do what they're going to do. So at this point forward, I still see some signs that DC Films could do some good things, but as long as they keep going down the road of producing substandard films like BVS, Suicide Squad, and now I'm going to say it, Justice League, from a lot of people's appearances and a lot of people's opinions, that's not the way to go for the future of the franchise as a whole. And it can't all rest on the shoulders of Wonder Woman and the Wonder Woman movies. That's not fair to the individuals that work on work on those films, and it's definitely not fair to the individual Gal Gadot that actually it portrays her. So that's my opinion on the DC Films universe. It's kind of we're kind of actually really at a tenuous point right now, because I understand with Suicide Squad 2 coming down the road as well, and all those other great things that we've talked about that DC seems to be all over the place on, standalone Joker movies, what have you. I just think they need to go and right the ship and get a tighter focus on what they need to do going forward, and all this other extraneous stuff, just set it aside so that they can focus on making good quality films on a once or twice a year basis.
Until you mentioned it, I completely forgot that Suicide Squad was a thing. So that tells you about the resonating impact of this universe. Put it next to Avatar and call it a day. It's been relegated to Avatar Cinematic Universe status until otherwise noted.
Yes, indeed. Wicked. So, but we'll have to wait and see what the future holds in store for DC Films. What are your thoughts out there on the DC Films universe? Do you like where it's going, or do you see the need to make drastic changes to the Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Flash, Cyborg, whole 9 yards consortium? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos and Humanica Media on Facebook and GameSource. On Facebook and Twitter as well. Well, we got a great show lined up. We've also got a Cosmic Crossfire coming up for you in the middle of the show with Rob and I.
Deluxe edition.
Yes, it's a deluxe edition indeed. We're going to be going back and forth on topics that are going on within the realm of pop culture. So it's definitely something to look forward to indeed, along with Tyler Baker previewing Week 12 in the NFL. Also got Mike Crockett on deck, sharing some more thoughts on the pro wrestling scene. And of course, we'll be back later in the program to go back and forth on the topic, is 2007 the best year ever for gaming?
Oh my goodness. I can't wait to hear this, what this argument is. I just can't wait. I hope everybody is as skeptical as I am going into this. You got to stick around to hear whatever this argument is.
Definitely, you got to stay around indeed. So it's going to be another great program right here on the PCC Multiverse, but it all kicks off with our good friend Plasma Z. This is level 1, and this is the PCC Multiverse. And we're back with another episode of the Cosmic... Oh, I heard you. And we're back with another episode of the Cosmic Crossfire. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate you coming back and listening to us. I'm here back again with my good friend. He's the man behind RobMcCallumFilms.com. And I'll tell you what, just a lot of great topics on the way. So, Rob McCallum, first off, what's going on in your world with Rob McCallum Films?
Well, there's a couple cool things coming up. We're definitely diving both feet into box art and it's going to be great to get that shaped up and shipped out. So lots of shipping and shaping and molding and morphing and getting that series ready to go to share with everybody. And along those lines of what we're excited to share is maybe some new news, some new kind of accreditations to kind of talk about and bring in some new people on December 2nd. The Emmy Awards take place in Chicago for the Midwest chapter of the United States of America for the Academy of Television and Sciences. And we've been nominated for 3 Emmys, so we're excited to see what the results are there and how that can help catapult what we want to do in our productions and into the next level. And we've got some really interesting options on the plate for what our next project might be. But of course, like I said, we want to get box art kind of sorted, shipped on the way, and then really kind of lay a clear path. It actually might not be a documentary, believe it or not. We are looking at some narrative ideas to explore, and it might not be live action.
Really? So that's a lot of great information indeed. That's a lot of great information indeed right there. And you can check all the updates out on Rob McCallum Films on Facebook and also robmccallumfilms.com. So it's the Cosmic Crossfire. A lot of great things that are going on in the pop culture realm. So lay it on me, brother. What is the latest in pop culture?
Well, like I said, this is a bit of a deluxe edition this week. I wasn't sure how much to bring with me, my little Crossfire carry case. So I just kind of picked a good grab bag of stuff, and I think we might as well stick in the DC universe for the first couple of topics. And one that is potentially exciting, potentially predictable move, but nonetheless happening is a Harley Quinn animated series is on the way for DC's streaming service. And I gotta wonder, though, this is an animated series, which means it's going to get compared to all the legendary DC animated series right away. Batman the animated series, where Harley, of course, made her appearance. Superman animated series, the Justice League animated series, Justice League Unlimited, plus Teen Titans, and all these other like DC Direct films that we have now, which are 30 films deep now. DC Direct, basically animating some of the best comic stories out there. If you haven't checked them out, definitely check them out. But now Harley Quinn is getting her own animated series for DC's streaming service. Is animated series the way to go for her? And how is this going to survive, you think, without big heavy hitters like Batman or the Joker involved?
Are they guaranteed to not be there? Because I can't foresee a Harley Quinn anthology series or whatnot without some hint of the Joker or Batman being involved or interacting with them at some point in time.
Well, the copy that I read said that she was going out on her own away from Mr. J. So I would guess that that might be the concept or the conceit for the start of the series. You may see Joker in episode 1, or you may only hear about how she left, everything that was going on in Gotham, but it sounds like she is going to depart on an adventure for herself. Whether it takes place in Gotham is all up in the air. I don't know. I don't understand, I guess, how does this play into the rest of the bigger plan for what this character could be? Because, of course, we've heard rumblings about Gotham Sirens. I think that was the name of that project. A possible just Harley Quinn movie as well, Suicide Squad 2. And now they have an animated series. And DC is pretty famous not to mix mediums with things that are going on either on the silver screen or on the television network. So again, I'm not sure where this quite fits. Maybe they think it's a bit of an orphan thing because it's on the streaming service. Maybe it's the extended universe that doesn't have anything to do with the cinematic universe. Or maybe this is just DC and the fact that there isn't really a plan should just be par for the course. What are your thoughts?
I think a series in an animated form, if it's separated, I think that actually, if it's done well, could work and could bring the DC streaming service a bit of a jolt and a bit of life that it sorely needs. I don't want a live action series with Harley Quinn. I don't want really. I'm not sure that even a standalone
Why do you
film.
say live action is not a good choice for you?
No, live action is in any form. I don't even think a live action film to the big screen right now is still, even though she was the most popular character out of the Suicide Squad, I'm not sure it would really translate well, especially with DC's track record as of late. But I think this is the best way to go. And it's also the smartest way if the stories, the way they're in, either whether it's going to be a episode by the numbers within a realm of a 30-minute to 1 hour episode, or if you do an interconnecting series of episodes. To me, I think that's the smartest way to go at this point for DC.
You see, given the television live action success of the DC universe on like the CW specifically, I would be very keen to see what they could develop for a live action opportunity for this. Even if it was just painting her as one of those, anti-hero villains where she isn't the good guy. I think that would really bolster the CW's lineup. It wouldn't just be Supergirl as the female skewing DC hero series out there. I think you could have a fifth show to cross over with all those other ones and try to keep up with all that mayhem. But
that's why I wouldn't do it.
Though,
that's why I wouldn't do it, because DC. I think there's just too much on the CW for DC at this point in time.
But they all work. That's the problem. They all work well on their own. And sure, you've got to watch, all the other series once or twice a season to get the other angles of what's going on. But it isn't really necessary to understand the rest of the storyline. So I think it would be an interesting move to bring Harley Quinn into that. I really do. And I guess the other question I have, if it's an animated series, what is the demographic? Are they aiming adult, like their most recent DC Direct films have been, where they're rated PG and PG-13, or are they going to skew more kid-friendly and go with something that's a little bit more on the Teen Titans level? That's a huge question to play and to figure out for a show like that.
I think they're going to go more to a PG-13 because adults now are watching animated series at a much higher level, whether it's their fondness from what they were watching as younger ages, or whether the fact that there's just great programming within the animation market with a lot of great storytelling and great narratives. I think at this point in time, I think they would probably skew it towards the PG-13, a little bit stronger messages than putting it for the Saturday morning cartoon crowd, that type of younger audience.
Well, speaking of PG moves, this next question seems to be a bit of a PC decision or a PG decision, and that's Superman's mustache when it comes to Justice League, the super stash, as I'm going to call it. Apparently, Henry Cavill had a mustache of sorts when it came time to filming some reshoots or other parts of the script that he was contractually obliged to have for another production.
Mission Impossible 6.
Mission Impossible 6. So they had to digitally remove the super stash from the super lip. And a lot of people said it was really strange looking at this plasticine like Simpson looking mouth. Now, I gotta ask you, I'm no hair and makeup expert, but isn't it easier to just grow another mustache or, add a mustache instead of having to remove something in post?
Like, I would have said a fake one could do just as well. I mean, it's Hollywood, right? Makeup artists are paid a lot of money to make things look real onto a person, so...
And this is, I guess, where I really question things in terms of what is DC doing from a legality point of view. We talked about, Ben Affleck possibly stepping away from the Batman role and you liking continuity across all the films that come out. Now I'm thinking about the super stash. Did the DC lawyers not really get a lot of this stuff locked down? Did they not get Ben Affleck tied down for 15 films like they did Robert Downey Jr. on the Marvel side? Did they not sign Henry Cavill, up to an appearance clause in the same way that he was signed up to one for Mission Impossible 6, evidently? Who got fired over this decision? Because I'm sure removing the CG super stash costs more than just shaving it off and having to grow it back again and inconveniencing a production for a day or two.
Well, I agree with you on that. It just doesn't make sense to me. But then again, it goes back to the lack of cohesiveness between the two directors and the two different all the reshoots and the two different ideals as far as what goes in the picture, which in essence gives you an idea of what to expect when you watch the film and you see the film as a whole and see what parts were one individual's and what other parts were another individual directors, and you can see the mix mash, the scenes that are sometimes it becomes very disjointed, and one of those things is the super stash, and I'll tell you what, it doesn't
It sounds so ridiculous. I love it.
it doesn't it doesn't shy away from it. It hits you right in the head with it at the very beginning, and I'll tell you, that is basically the first thing you see, which is just too humorous to see it because it looked so bad, especially in the first few minutes of the film.
Isn't that like a perfect metaphor for the success of the DC universe? All they're trying to do is hide the mustache and hope nobody notices. They're cranking out films full of mistakes, glaring, obvious issues that could have been taken care of with a little bit more time and thought. Instead, they throw it up on the screen and let people feel uncomfortable about the whole thing.
And the one time they do it right, look what happens with
No mustache. She doesn't even have a mustache.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't blame her for that. She's got no wonder stash.
Well, Chris Pine, his next film, or the next major film he'll appear on, is the upcoming Disney film. I think it's A Wrinkle in Time, where he has a beard, goatee, setting in and whatnot. But if there was any reshoots in Wonder Woman, you would have never seen it because, like you said, even if they were conflicted, they look like he would have shaved it off with no problems. So. Yeah. That part, it looked like all the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed when it came to Wonder Woman. But when it came to all the different reshoots and the problems and the issues with having two different directors do so much each in regards to the film, that's the problem that happens, because these actors have other roles, they have other agreements, and there's other companies, movie companies, that may do a better job of dotting their I's and crossing their T's than certainly what Warner Brothers has been doing.
Which is surprising for a company the size of Warner Brothers. Speaking of Disney and what they got going on their slate, a few weeks ago we discussed the possibility of Disney buying Fox. Well, now in a strange and interesting turn, Sony and Universal have been now expressing interest in buying Fox. So can you imagine if Sony were to buy Fox and bolster their assets, which we've also talked about being dwindling in terms of the franchises they have at their disposal? That would give Sony access to the X-Men and Fantastic Four universes, which they could combine with Spider-Man. Now, Spider-Man, of course, has made lots of appearances in both those comics, even donning the Fantastic Four traditional blue suit before, and being confused as a mutant in the X-Men series before because he wasn't sure if he was technically a mutant or not. So he's got some really cool kind of crossover capabilities there. And let's not forget, if Sony were to buy Fox and get access to the X-Men universe or library in the Fantastic Four one, you really got to think that there's a chance for at least Marvel to license that stuff back, given their involvement with Spider-Man. So whether Disney is still a potential buyer for Fox, which I'm sure they would like to be, if Sony still comes in through the door, I still think that gives Disney a possible in to license those characters into the larger universe that they're developing. What did you think of that report when you heard it?
I read it, and I'm not in love with it because Sony, over the past 20 years, let's face it, Rob, they have not had a winning reputation as in regards to their film library as well. They've had many failures along the way, but yes, I see what you're saying as far as it's kind of like a side door, a back door. If Fox really doesn't want to sell to Disney, if Disney even is still interested in it, or the price is too much for what they want to do. But I can agree with you that as soon as Sony would buy it, would be like, psst, hey Disney, hey Marvel, hey, I got a deal for you, man. I got a deal for you.
They can almost expect a certain return against their purchase instantly by having the licensing deal in their back pocket.
I'd be driving from Hollywood to Anaheim right away if I was part member of Sony and I got that deal done. So I hear you.
Right to the Magic Kingdom, huh? Right to the front door.
Right down the freeway. Hopefully, with knowing the traffic, it would be in a carpool lane. But go ahead.
There you go. There you go. Did you have? I don't know if we've talked about this before. I think we may have, but we bring up X-Men and Fantastic Four, of course, belonging to Fox. Do you have any idea of how to reboot the Fantastic Four, and at what point should it be rebooted or revisited?
I think it should be integrated with. Oh, okay, let's say for all intents and purposes, whether it's through Sony, whether Fox strikes a deal with Disney, for just that series, or if it's a total buyout by Disney of the Fox Films library. I'm just going to say this at this point in time. The best way to do it is just to reintegrate them slowly into the Marvel Cinematic Universe and then try to go ahead with a reboot maybe 5 to 7 years down the line. But don't even think about it within a normal realm, and just have them become a part of a larger consortium first before you go ahead and try to branch them out again with something like that, because it's just only going to ask for trouble.
Yeah, I don't disagree with your strategy. I would like to see it something akin to what happened in Civil War with Spider-Man, where you really had like a special scene or sequence play out where it was, say, Spider-Man goes to the Baxter Building to visit and talk to the Fantastic Four, specifically to get information that they only had. They're not integral to whatever plot or film that they're in or whomever is visiting them, but you get to see Reed Richards, Ben Grimm, Sue Storm, Johnny Storm, and then that's it. Maybe they make an appearance at the end during the climax, like full don kind of costumes and stuff. But then
or maybe even just as regular them before initiating an origin story, maybe from that.
I don't even think you need to do an origin story. I don't even think you need to do it. I think you just jump into whenever you get to the chance to do a standalone one. You've already seen them probably in 3 films in some capacity. In the same way that we saw Agent Coulson kind of dropped in early, phase 1 of Marvel Cinematic Universe, we just see different members of the Fantastic Four kind of part of big key events that pull them together. And hey, with the Infinity Gauntlet stuff coming up, I saw a pretty cool YouTube short documentary on the history of the Gauntlet and who's had it. Doctor Doom has had it at one point. What better way to tie them possibly into the Marvel Cinematic Universe than have the Fantastic Four try to take on Doctor Doom and need the help of some other heroes?
That's a great point indeed, and that would be a great way to integrate them back as far as for that overall battle. And I would like to see that almost as much as I would like to see the X-Men integrated, especially Wolverine integrated back within the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
But can we ever really see Wolverine now that Hugh Jackman's done with the role?
He wouldn't be done with the role if Marvel Cinematic Universe.
He's done, man. He is done.
No, I would tell you. I'm going to tell you right now. I would put money on it if Disney tomorrow bought Marvel Cinematic Universe. I would actually bet money that Hugh Jackman would be reinvigorated to at least do one more appearance within the Marvel Cinematic Universe in an Infinity War concept.
Are you talking like in the same way that he was in like Days of Future? Was it X-Men First Class, where he's just at the bar and he told Xavier and Magneto to F off? Or are you talking like an actual performance?
I would probably say he would be at first just like you said, just at the bar or in a place, okay, I'm not going to do it. But
it's not worth it to him. It's not worth it to him.
Not near the end. Hold on. Near the end, he would come and be in the middle of that battle scene.
No.
He would come to save the day.
No.
I'm telling you he would, because it's a new concept to an actor as far as, hey, we're throwing this at you as part of this bigger universe. I think he couldn't resist. I'm just going to say he couldn't resist. I don't think it'll happen. Let's put it this way. I don't think it will happen. But if it did, if the possibility was there, I think he would jump at it. I think if it was done right and the proposition would get, they wouldn't have to wear the whole thing would be on him, that you could just go ahead and get that glory right there. There you go.
I disagree. Much like I'll disagree with your 2007 is the greatest years of video games. But we'll get to that soon enough. Do you want me to keep going? Do you need another break?
No, I'm waiting for you. Is that your
I
topics
got
for?
I got four more.
Lay it on me, man.
All right. Well, in more Disney related news, we're going to turn our attention towards Star Wars. It seems like every week there's a franchise or something that always ties back to good old Mickey Mouse Company, Disney. And we finally get to hear the words from Chris Miller and Phil Lord about leaving Han Solo, of course. For everybody out there that's listening that may not know, Chris Miller and Phil Lord were directing the Han Solo standalone film, much like Rogue One, the saga films, if you will. And they had to depart. And Ron Howard has now stepped in to finish filming on that. I believe the reshoots are done for that now, and
Yeah,
they're
it's
in
all
post
finished.
production.
Already wrapped
So,
up, and that's when they named. That's when they announced the name of the actual film is going to be just Solo.
oh, is that what it's called now officially? I seem to
Just
have missed
Solo.
that.
Yeah,
Oh.
just like this cup, Solo.
Just like my career, Solo. um, well, it was nice to hear them to talk about the subject, but they really haven't shed too much light on it. I'll read their quote for people. The experience of shooting the movie was wonderful. We had the most incredible cast and crew and collaborators. I think in terms of us leaving the project, I think everybody went in with really good intentions, and our approach to making the movie was different than theirs. There was a really big gap to bridge, and it proved to be too big. Sometimes people break up, and it's really sad, and it's really disappointing, but it happens. We learned a lot from our collaborators, and we're better filmmakers for it. We're really proud of the work we did on the movie. Wish everybody the best. And then talking about some of the new stuff that they had in the works and where they are right now. We're super well adjusted. Obviously, we're doing great. We're super drunk right now. As Phil said, we had such a good relationship with the cast and crew. We're really rooting for them. And after we took a much needed vacation, we got back into it, and we're writing and producing a sequel to the Lego movie and producing a Miles Morales animated Spider-Man movie. So clearly those guys are not hurting for work, regardless of the departure from one of the biggest films of their careers, for sure. They're probably more comfortable doing, something like the Lego Movie spinoff, which really put them on the map as far as a duo, and to take on the animated Spider-Man film. That sounds pretty exciting too, and Sony's got some faith in them. So, does that quote do anything for you, or does that just seem like a PR spin after months of silence?
Just PR spin. I know that. I think credit goes to Vulture on as far as doing the interview on that, but be that as it may, I just think it's just PR spin. I think as someone who has worked on films and has been the point man as far as these productions are concerned, on a smaller scale, mind you, but still nonetheless, and as someone who actually a long time ago got to hear every now and then some inside stuff going on sets and whatnot, discourse, unhappiness, real thoughts, real emotions, and real feelings regarding a studio on the set on a couple of occasions. That's not what they're telling people. That's not how they're exactly feeling 100%. But because they want future when you got to play the game in Hollywood. If you're that level, you want more opportunities of that level with something else that may come around after Lego Movie 2 and going forward. So you definitely don't want to burn too many bridges, because they mentioned bridges, so you don't want to burn those bridges that are still there. And whether or not they will ever work for Disney again, I sincerely doubt it, but there's still so many other studios out there that could give them a project that's with a huge production budget and would want to do so, but they wouldn't do so if they're going ahead and they're going to badmouth every single entity that they worked on when they were working for Disney.
Yeah, I think these two guys are the most poised for success post Star Wars breakup than a lot of the other victims. I think we obviously know Josh Trank had some difficulties on his own with whatever film he was attached to. They never really fully announced it. And then Colin Trevorrow leaving episode 9 with really only Jurassic World as the big ticket in the back of his pocket. and then these guys. You know, I mean, I guess to some degree you could put Gareth Edwards in there, but everything went fine for him on Rogue One. They just brought some other people in to do some reshoots when he wasn't available in terms of directing, and that's a little muddy and murky. But these two guys seem to have a ton, you know, in their pocket in terms of options, and their resume is a little bit longer than everybody else's. So even if this is just a clever PR spin, I think they probably are pretty well adjusted and have options to kind of go forward, and that Disney cannot crush them and stop them from kind of having a fruitful career, whether it's with them or not.
Well, you mentioned it already as far as them needing a vacation and a break. So obviously working on something that intense within the Star Wars universe and the demands that it has, it's unlike anything else within the cinema, as far as if you work on that franchise. So seemingly there's a lot of pressure that's put upon directors. And as someone who is a director, such as yourself, I can see, you know, we've spoken about before the interactions because of what happened to those two directors, and if you were given those opportunities, how you would approach it. So definitely, I would say that the biggest thing that I take from it is that there's a lot of pressure when you go ahead and helm something within the Star Wars franchise.
Speaking of interesting new movie details and other projects for other people, details have emerged on Tarantino's next movie. Now, I don't know if you read the little leak that happened there, but I'll let everybody else know about it. It's set in Los Angeles in the summer of '69, and the script apparently focuses on a male TV actor who's had one hit series and is looking to get his way into the film business. Now, his sidekick, who's also his stunt double, is looking for the same thing. The horrific murder of Sharon Tate and four of her friends by Charles Manson's cult of followers serves as a backdrop to the main story. At one point in time, Tarantino said he was only going to make 10 films. I think this is number 10. If I do the math quickly, I think it's number 10. Could be wrong, not sure. What do you think is this this is a setup? Tarantino taking on a movie set in LA, which is cool. Pulp Fiction was set in LA, I believe.
Actually, it was set in LA, excuse me. And then also Jackie Brown was set in LA as well, Southern California. Actually just my neck of the woods in the Torrance area. So.
Oh, there you go. The old stomping grounds. But what do you think about Tarantino taking on something in the film and television industry as a subject matter?
Well, you know him. He is so crafted and he is so gifted a filmmaker that he'll go ahead and definitely he's not afraid to just go ahead, whether overtly or discreetly, point out his messages and whether it's to the whatever industry or whatever agenda that he wants to create from it. He's not afraid of creating a stance, and he knows he has enough cachet, even with the Hateful Eight not doing as well as it was projected doing. And he'll again address that because it came out, I believe, right around the time of The Force Awakens, and there were some issues there as well. But I think he's just so skilled of a filmmaker that it's a great way for him to, if it's his final one, then it's a great way for him to send a message to the film industry about what he thinks, about how he feels about it.
I guess I just really consider how he might tackle the look and feel of what it is to make movies instead of just giving the audience his stylistic impression of the scenes that are going on. So I think of stuff like Kill Bill, I think of stuff like Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs, where they're super stylistic, whether it's the slow motion, profile walk in Reservoir Dogs, or the camera work that the camera is essentially on a crane and we're looking straight down into the restaurant that Charlie Brown owns in Kill Bill, and the camera's going in and out of all the rooms and panning around, making Citizen Kane look like amateur hour. How is he going to treat and showcase what it's like to make movies? I'm really curious about that, and what it's like to make movies in 1969.
Well, that intro.
What his commentary is on the Hollywood machine at that point, set against a bunch of murders.
Well, I'll tell you what, that also interests me greatly because I was actually born in the Los Angeles area in 1969. So for me, it will seem somewhat sentimental, although the backdrop obviously is going to have a very unfortunate very unfortunate event, a tragic murder, and very for all the wrong reasons, well known still to this day with the passing of Manson himself. So that's brought back those horrible memories and people wanted to know more about that information. So but for me, I just am curious to see that how he envisions that period of time. Because like I said, it was just when I was born, and I want to know more about it. And maybe this would in some way will give me a deeper glimpse of what the world was like if it's done well, which I'm pretty sure it will be coming from Tarantino at that point in time.
It'll be something interesting to see, and I hope it does perform better or appeals to a broader audience than The Hateful Eight. I know he's been doing a lot of westerns in one sense or another recently, and I don't know. I think there's a limited appeal to western. Do you think there's a limited appeal to like the behind the scenes kind of take on Hollywood? But if the story and the hook are compelling enough, I think it could reach that wide audience and really put them on the map in the same way that Inglourious Bastards did.
Yeah, well, you know, it's for his movies. Um, Only on 2 or 3 occasions has he had a really commercial film, because there's been a lot of weight behind it from fan approval to also critical acclaim, which sometimes swoops it into the awards talk. And if it's a movie that gets into that awards talk, you see those box office numbers for the most part that gets translated into it, especially with his films. The Hateful Eight, I think, was pretty much ignored by most of the critical community as far as being at that higher level. I don't think it was really perceived as one of his best films, so I think it just kind of got lost in the mud and obviously got bowled over at that point in time by The Force Awakens. But I think this next film, especially if it's his last, because I know a lot of people will tout it and will advertise it if that's the case. If it is truly his final attempt at filmmaking, I think that it will go a long way. And if it's done well, that as far as a movie that could actually really do well at the box office.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But like you're saying, ultimately a Tarantino film will be an event film because of who he is as a director, which aren't many people in that circle. There really aren't that many directors you can say are in that circle. So it'll be interesting to check out for sure.
You were hanging out with George Lucas the other day, so
yeah, something like that.
And then also had an appearance with Kylo Ren, so I saw that too.
Yeah, I sort of met George Lucas the other day, so that was an interesting encounter. And wow, George just he likes his plaid. That's all I can say about that. He really likes his plaid.
This is true, but I just love the way the individual who plays Kylo Ren, he's gotten this I don't want to say motley group together, but it just seems like this group together that they'll
this ragtag group of mercenaries that are all about the cosplay mercenaries, I guess you could say.
Exactly, yeah. But I'm so happy for him because he gets to go and do a lot of events, a lot of conventions, and a lot of charitable things that he does by those appearances. So more props to your friend. And also he's a good friend of mine as well, Jay Bartlett. And I hope to get him on the show real soon, but he's a hard man to get. But I have a feeling around Star Wars time that I think I'm going to be able to at least get his thoughts on that.
Yeah, you might be able to. The Mercenaries of Masquerade, I guess. The ragtag Mercenaries of Masquerade. That sounds like a really good catchphrase for them.
Yeah, there you go. There you go, indeed.
I'll sell that to them somehow. I got only 2 more things I want to touch on, and this next one I think is a little fun, and that's because I came across an article talking about blockbusters that were supposed to be good that were not. So I kind of have a question for you, and that is, which least are you likely to watch again? And I'm going to go through 3 pairs, and you've got to give your pros and cons for not wanting to watch either of these films. Okay. So the first pairing is which least likely are you to watch again between The Lone Ranger with Armie Hammer and Johnny Depp or Green Lantern with Ryan Reynolds?
The Green Lantern.
So what puts Lone Ranger ahead of the Green Lantern?
Because I actually wanted to see it in the theaters, didn't get a chance to, just other stuff going on in my life, plus other better pictures that were out, because I saw how not so good it was doing for Disney and whatnot. But I always wanted to see it, and then finally it came up on AMC about 3-4 months back, I want to say, and I did get a chance to see it. And you know what? It's long. It's excessively long. It could have been a much better movie had it been shortened up, but it was, it's much better as a film that was a little bit shorter, and I don't know. I just think that it really could have done a lot better if it was shorter, and I think that it would turn out to be an okay film. I got through it. I got through it, and actually didn't mind seeing it again later that weekend. So with my young ones. So.
And in Green Lantern, any thoughts on that?
Wrong button there. Green Lantern, I saw it, and it was just horrible. Just absolutely. Ryan Reynolds. I like Ryan Reynolds' shtick on some occasions. Deadpool, obviously. Waiting is one from way back when. That's really good. But yeah, it only goes so far, and it didn't go so far in this one because the story was bad, and just really, I think, was expecting something else, and unfortunately didn't get it. And now he can joke about it later on, obviously, as he did in Deadpool. But yeah, not so good.
Speaking of Green Lantern, do you think that should DC, and apparently it's on the dockets for them to do another Green Lantern film, do you think that they should bring Hal Jordan in as Ryan Reynolds, but focus on like John Stewart or Guy Gardner, the other two Lanterns of Earth?
I don't think they should bring back Ryan Reynolds. I don't think he'll even want to do it.
I think it would be an interesting cameo to see him, though, don't you? I think that'd be a nice way to tie it in.
But it would be very expensive.
I think he would do it just to mug in front of the camera and just poke fun of the experience. I think he'd do it. Next up, which least are you likely to watch again? I think I kind of know, but I'm not sure. Phantom Menace or Batman Forever?
That's a good one. I'd probably say Phantom Menace because
You're
my daughter
least
likes
likely to watch that again, or you're going to watch that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Batman Forever. That was like a one and done for me.
Really?
Phantom Menace, you can actually have on the background and do something else. And one of my girls actually likes the prequels a little bit more than the rest of the family. So
You've got some work to do as a father, then.
Tell me about it.
Because it's funny, because I've probably seen Batman Forever significantly more than Phantom Menace. Mind you, I am a pretty big Jim Carrey fan. That hit me at the right time. I actually like Val Kilmer, at least as a Bruce Wayne. I thought it was an interesting take on the whole Batman universe, that almost Batman 66 vibe versus like the Tim Burton darkness to it. And I don't know. There's I think some redeeming qualities about it. And I don't know. I would probably be okay not to see the Phantom Menace again and keep Batman Forever. The last pair I got, and maybe we'll bring this as a recurring feature, either or, kind of going forward on Cosmic Crossfire. But the last pair I got here, which least are you likely to watch again, is Halle Berry's Catwoman or Super Mario Brothers?
Halle Berry's Catwoman. Saw that once. I'm done with that. I'm going to get that out of my life. I think she's a tremendous actress and a beautiful woman, but I'm just that has to go. That was just rancid. That story, that was just. I can't believe that they made it. I feel so bad for her because that's going to live with her for the rest of her. That's going to just stick with her like gum on her shoe for the rest of her life. Super Mario Brothers, you can always treat as campy and just hilarious and just really bad for all the wrong reasons. But
you could say that all those things about Catwoman though too.
Yeah, but Catwoman is just I think it's actually worse than Super Mario Brothers. I could actually sit through Super Mario Brothers again. I can't sit through Catwoman again. That's just like needles in my eyes.
All right, well, that'll do it for that topic. I came across an article and I had to fire some of these hypotheticals your way. And yeah, there's no winners in those ones necessarily, folks. But what would you have picked? Would you have picked Lone Ranger or Green Lantern, Phantom Menace, or Batman Forever, Halle Berry's Catwoman, or Super Mario Brothers? The last thing I wanted to throw your way is a film that I have actually watched 3 times since it came out on November 17th. And it's a film that really punched me in the emotions. It hit me in the gut. And it's about movie making. It's about a spiritual message. It's uplifting. And when I say spiritual message, it's about kind of just stepping back from who you are and what you're looking for in life and where you want to go. And this is an exceptional documentary called Jim and Andy: The Great Beyond. Gerald, have you seen this yet?
No, but I have heard about it because of all the extenuating circumstances around Man on the Moon. And I know it's something that a lot of people say it is really good. And it's actually worth restarting or getting a Netflix subscription for.
This is a phenomenal documentary, and the concept behind it is that Universal, I believe it's Universal, hired an EPK crew, which is an electronic press kit crew, to document the behind the scenes of making Man on the Moon, starring Jim Carrey in the role of Andy Kaufman for essentially an Andy Kaufman biopic. Typically, EPK is only done for a couple weeks out of the production, and then that's kind of marketed and shifted to what you see as the behind the scenes featurettes. Now, if you're in a theater a little bit early before the main film is about to play, you'll see kind of going behind the scenes on the set of the Avengers, and you have some of the cast and crew talking about it. You see some stunt breakdown. But for this, they filmed almost all the production, and infamously, Carrey stayed in character as Kaufman for the entirety of the run to basically get it right and to not break it, to not have the unevenness.
Which is not uncommon because a lot of actors that, for instance, Australians that do American accents or English actors that do American accents or vice versa, they often throughout the entire production, from what I've seen and heard, actually do the same thing as well.
Yeah, so there's definitely some rationale to that, but this is more than just the story of what it was like behind the scenes to make Man on the Moon, which was directed by Milos Forman, who is a brilliant filmmaker. He directed the Academy Award-winning One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with Jack Nicholson and a host of other just amazing films. This is more than the behind the scenes of that. This is also a little bit on who Andy Kaufman was and his impact in the universe as a comedian, as a bit of a comedian that's on the fringes, but it's also very much a Jim Carrey biopic. You see a lot of footage of Carrey through the years and how his life and Andy Kaufman's life intersect at this interesting point in time, and what that has done for Carrey at that point and going forward, and what it all means today. The film is 90% all archival footage from what was shot during the making of it, and the only kind of new footage is a single interview done with Carrey, who's talking directly to camera, explaining what some of those events were like, and kind of looking back on it, what it means today, and looking back on his whole career, and what all of this means. You hit the mute button.
Yeah, I've just been listening to your as far as explanation to why Man on the Moon is so. Oh, actually, this documentary on Jim Carrey during Man on the Moon is so good. Still there?
Yeah, I'm there. You said a bunch of stuff when you were muted, so I just literally heard the last like 4 sentences.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine. No, that was just actually my wife just called, so don't worry about that. So this will be all edited out. But yeah, I was just going into what was going on with this documentary. It just from what I'm able to see, because I've actually seen more than a couple trailers on it, and it looks very intriguing about what goes on behind the scenes with the making of it, and just Jim Carrey. I think as an actor, he'll always be very unappreciated, and I think his future, because of all the controversy that has surrounded him in later years, unfortunately will never get his due and may never get a great opportunity again, which is very unfortunate, because I think as an actor, he has been able to, on occasion, really, really show why that he can really do the job when given a task to do so.
Well, you mentioned the trailers, and I will say the trailers really focus on the outlandishness and the shock value and the wow, this guy is weird kind of vibe when it comes to Jim Carrey interacting with people, and how absurd and bizarre that must be for everyday folks, because isn't he just an actor? For me, that the film functions like that's like level 3, and it's like the least kind of significant part of the narrative that you see unfold. You quickly accept that that's the way it's going to be, and you really don't get surprised by anything that comes along the way. At least I didn't, because it's par for the course. It's Jim being Andy or Jim being Tony Clifton, as it may pertain to the different scenes. But it's really about, for me, how that functions in his career and his life, and how that has positioned him to where he is now, and what that means, and how you as a viewer can sit back and witness that objectively, and what can you pull from that, and what can you learn from that experience in your own life. And this, like I said, I've seen this 3 times now since it's come out on the 17th, and it's not coincidence. Yeah, I am a big Jim Carrey fan, as I mentioned when we talked about Batman Forever, but this transcends liking anyone for pure reasons of fandom. This is the kind of stuff that it asks the big questions to which you should have the answers about yourself and what you want to do in life and why you want to do them. So
I agree with you. I mean, like I said, I just seeing him transform into that character and stay within character throughout the entire process. As far as that, it should be for anyone who is actually either a Jim Carrey fan or just likes a good behind-the-scenes documentary. I think this is something definitely that they should shoot forward.
Well, Gerald, I hope you'll promise me that you will watch it. You will find 90 minutes to check it out and see what I'm raving about. And I hope everybody that's listening, whether they want to do their free trial on Netflix to check out Jim and Andy: The Great Beyond, or whether they have it, they should take it. And you know what? If you got to sit there and watch it alone because you don't think your significant other would be into it, then sit there and watch it alone. It's a good film. You will laugh. You will do some good pondering, and you will be shown a world that you didn't think kind of existed. It
reminds me a lot of yours, Nintendo Quest, whereas a lot of people who...
No wonder I like it so much.
Well, first of all, the reason why I say that is because Nintendo Quest, it's about video games, la 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 la. You know, I don't want to see that, blah, blah. And then they sit down and they watch it. And I remember I think I've played it with in front of people about 2 or 3 times, and every time I start off watching it by myself, and it ends up at the end of the film with 2 or 3 people around me actually going, "Wow, this was a good movie," and it just, it has that kind of vibe that this will follow in the same fashion. Somebody will be like Tanya will actually walk by and oh, what you're watching, and you'll tell her whatnot, and then she'll end up watching the whole thing, sitting down, thinking that originally it may not be for her, but eventually the story draws you in, or the way the narrative is drawn in this documentary, similar to what you did in Nintendo Quest, will just draw you right in.
It has that effect, and that's an interesting parallel that you've thrown out there. My Snaky Pete Nintendo Quest is actually more than just video games formula, but yeah, everybody needs to watch it.
And you know that, and I actually said it in my review. But people just when they see the surface of it, they'll just say, "Oh, this is video games," la 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 la, and then they sit down and they find out it's something so much more.
Yeah, and I understand why Jim and Andy's being marketed the way that it is, in the same way that I had to market Nintendo Quest the way that I did. We also just apparently got a sale for Nintendo Quest in the UK, which is really exciting, coincidentally. So thanks for bringing it up and jogging my memory. So our UK fans will be able to check it out. They're on an esports network, from what I understand. But bottom line is, I don't want to talk more about it because I don't want to spoil it for anybody, and I've really tried to kind of stay clear from the big things that got to me. But check it out, Jim and Andy, The Great Beyond. It's on Netflix now. Make sure you rate it a big thumbs up, and let us know what you think about Jim and Andy, The Great Beyond, and if it did for you what it did for me at a very significant time in my life, that helped me make a few big decisions in the last week or so. So yeah, that does it for the Cosmic Crossfire. What do you think? That was the deluxe edition.
That was a great, some really great topics indeed. We covered a full spectrum of pop culture, and definitely as someone who enjoyed Man on the Moon, definitely you got to check that out, either via trial or just restarting your Netflix subscription, or if you have one already, definitely something you need to check out. As a, you know, people sometimes, as you know, as someone who makes documentaries, people sometimes fear the word documentary as something that's going to be boring, or something that's just going to be something that they wouldn't be interested in because they don't think it will tell a great narrative. And as you proved with Nintendo Quest and Missing Mom, that's definitely far from the case.
And hopefully Kitty and Power of Grayskull will follow in those footsteps.
Well, I haven't seen those yet, so I can't tell.
Well, not yet. Maybe one day.
Maybe one day, indeed.
All right, well, I'm dying to know more about this year of 2007 in video games. People can let us know what they think about the Cosmic Crossfire and all that. But the only reason I'm sticking around at this point, because usually I bail after the Cosmic Crossfire, is I need to know why you think 2007 is the ultimate year in video games.
Well, if you have any questions out there for any of the topics that we cover on the Cosmic Crossfire, feel free to send us a shout out, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanic Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. Truly appreciate, Rob, you being part of the Pop Culture Cosmos, and of course, on another episode of the Cosmic Crossfire. And we're back out, and we're back to close out the show. This is the PCC Multiverse. My name is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source, and we truly appreciate you being part of the broadcast here today. And if you can't catch our shows, either the Monday show, the Pop Culture Cosmos show, the PCC Multiverse, or any one of our great programming that's we always have available either through Pop Culture Cosmos or Humanic Media, you just check out the Facebook and Twitter sites. We've got a lot of great places to go. Or for when the podcast drops every Monday and Friday, you can just head over to the Pop Culture Cosmos channel. I'm doing my spiel here, man. What's up with that? Pop Culture Cosmos channel on Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Podchaser, Google Play, Stitcher, the Tangibound Network, the ESO Network, and a whole bunch more. You got to check it out. Indeed, definitely. If you download it or stream it, there's a lot of extra content that we also provide for you on pretty much each and every episode as well. So here it is, Rob. I know it's late for you, but I'll tell you what, I'm glad you stayed on and appreciate you being part of the broadcast.
Staying up past my bedtime to hear this argument and this big statement that was floated to me almost a month ago now. That 2007 was the best year in all of video game history.
Well, first off, I want to thank Mike Crockett from the Wrestling Podcast About Nothing for joining us. Also as well, Tyler Baker for previewing Week 12 in the NFL. And of course, Plasma Z dropping is one of his great tracks with us as well. But I want to ask you, I'll say this. We just had a birthday for what I think is the greatest video game series, video game narrative series of all time. The Uncharted series celebrated recently this past week its 10th anniversary. First edition came out in 2007, Uncharted Drake's Fortune, and it came out, and just the way that narrative, the way that the video games could tell stories and go through through a cinematic process just seemingly has been transformed by what the Uncharted series and what Naughty Dog, its developer, has done over the past 10 years, which brought me to this summation that I was able to take, because I've done some investigation, and over the years being someone that actually was selling video games at the time in that year, just remembering and also just fondly just recalling all the great titles that came out that year. That 2007 in and of itself is, to me, the best year in video game history.
Wrong.
No, I am right. You cannot throw a lineup that's any better in 2007.
Watch me.
Okay. Well, first off, I'll tell you what. Not only did the Uncharted series get started off that, which revolutionized video game narratives, but Mass Effect series also started off then, which until Mass Effect Andromeda did the same thing. You had BioShock, Assassin's Creed, Portal, Crackdown. All those series started in 2007. And you also had the high for all these series and what many think are some of the best games in the series with Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, Halo 3, Super Mario Galaxy, Team Fortress 2, so many other video games that came out that year that really just helped transform the video game scene and basically brought it into what is now the modern era of video games. So I ask you, Rob, you are disagreeing with me. So pray tell, what do you think is the best year in video games?
Well, I did a little research in the 30 seconds that I had before the show started, and I've got a number of possible years that could contend. And I think they contend because they destroy the base argument that you're presenting, and that's that 2007 was good for you because it was the initial year for so many franchises.
But there was also
but it doesn't mean that by far those are the best entries of those franchises. And if you look at other years and other decades, you will see stronger titles grouped together from some of those franchises you mentioned. Now, I'm just going to mention a year like 2011 for you, okay? Because 2011 is pretty good as its own right. You got Arkham City,
but not the best.
You got Arkham City, Skyrim, Resistance 3, Saints Row the Third, Modern Warfare 3, Super Mario 3D Land, Dark Souls, Zelda Skyward Sword, Assassin's Creed Revelation, Uncharted 3, Mario Kart 7, Rayman Origins, Kirby's Return to Dreamland, Jetpack Joyride, Skylanders. And that was just from September on for 2011. Let's also not forget Portal 2, Deus Ex Human Revolution, Little Big Planet 2, Infamous 2, Mortal Kombat, LA Noire, Children of Eden, Dead Space 2, The Witcher 2. 2011 was a pretty good year for gaming. It also brought us Duke Nukem Forever. Now, you want to go a little bit on the retro side? Let's go a little bit on the retro side. Let's talk 1994. Super Metroid comes out, of course. All right. Let's mention Sonic 3. Let's mention Doom 2. Let's talk about XCOM UFO Defense. Let's talk about Final Fantasy 3 in the US. Let's talk about Donkey Kong Country. Let's talk about Killer Instinct, Warcraft, Tekken, and of course, Marathon. There's a ton of stuff in 1994. But maybe that's not enough for you.
Not quite good enough.
But maybe that's not enough for you. Let's talk 1997, okay? It only gave birth to one of the greatest action RPGs of all time that you want to talk about franchise trailblazing and setting the industry on its head. It's Castlevania Symphony of the Night. But to be honest, you were too busy playing GoldenEye 007 or Star Fox 64, let alone Final Fantasy 7. Or maybe you were playing Grand Theft Auto or Gran Turismo. Or maybe you were playing Street Fighter 3, Tomb Raider 2, Worms, XCOM Apocalypse, or Tekken 3. Or maybe you were playing WCW vs. NWO World Tour. Or maybe Diddy Kong was a racer that you played in 1997. 1997 is also pretty good there, Gerald. I don't know if I'm buying your 2007 deal.
It's pretty good. You know what? You know, Rob, you're right on all three accounts. They are pretty good. But you mentioned The Witcher as far as the Witcher 2 series that came in 2011. When did the first one that originated the series come out?
Which one's better? It's not about originator. It's about
2007.
Well, without the better title. And I'm not even done with candidates here.
For historic reasons. You cannot start. You cannot go.
We're jumping to 1996. Nintendo 64 hits. Let's look at this. Super Mario 64, possibly the best Mario title of all time, depending on
One title that cannot define the
Duke
exact
Nukem
greatness
3D
of a
comes
year.
out, of course. Resident Evil comes out. Crash Bandicoot, Tomb Raider, Quake, Diablo, Mario Kart 64, Final Doom, Star Ocean, Elder Scrolls 3 Daggerfall, Tekken 2, Nights into Dreams, Command and Conquer, Donkey Kong Country 3. 96 was also a landmark year. All right? Now, I'm going to keep going here because I've done a little bit of research.
And I'll tell you what, I
Just
can go
a little bit of research.
2007, far and away, is still the best year in video games because, like I said, just so many historic game franchises. The foundations were set in 2007.
It's not about foundations. It's not about the foundations. It's about the games.
Plus.
If you want to talk about foundations, let's just talk 1985 and every single title that came out for the Nintendo Entertainment System.
I'm just
that's the foundation for everything.
You're not letting me finish, though. I'm telling you, there's so many other games, as I mentioned, in 2007, which also were the highs of that series. You cannot tell me Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare wasn't the high for Call of Duty.
It wasn't.
It was. It has to.
No way. Modern Warfare 2 or 3 were far better entries.
Oh, no. I can't.
You know what? I'm not even done. I got 2 more landmark years to just let our listeners possibly consider, let alone you, okay? 2004, all right? Half-Life 2, Halo 2, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, all right? You still with me? How about World of Warcraft? How about Far Cry? Unreal Tournament 2004? But how about Counter-Strike? How about Doom 3? How about Metroid Prime 2? How about Ninja Gaiden? How about Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes? How about Zelda 4 Swords? How about Burnout 3? How about Need for Speed 2? How about Knights of the Old Republic 2? How about Final Fantasy 11? How about Sims 2, Pikmin 2, and Pokemon Fire Red, Leaf Green? That is a pretty solid year, Gerald.
It is, but not as good as 2007.
Well, I've got my final candidate here to crush you and to destroy your illusions of 2007, all right? This is where the puck finally drops and hits the ice, a nice Canadian hockey metaphor for you. I know you're waiting with bated breath. Do you have any idea what year I might be picking?
2007.
1998. Here we go, 1998. Pokemon Red Blue. Ocarina of Time. Maybe the best or most coveted Zelda title. The original Mario Party. Banjo-Kazooie. F-Zero X. Now, let's keep going down the list. StarCraft comes out. Metal Gear Solid comes out. Half-Life comes out. Fallout. Resident Evil first get their sequels coming out. Need for Speed comes out. DDR is starting to crush. So now I'm taking you on PC. I'm taking you on console. I'm taking you in the arcade. We got Baldur's Gate. We got Panzer Dragoon Saga. We got Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, Spyro the Dragon, Parasite Eve. It just doesn't get better. There are more games for this year that kept players coming back. They established franchises, defied genres, and changed the course of gaming forever in 1998.
Which is almost as good as 2007.
It's better.
No, it's almost.
And for everybody that's listening, I did my research quickly by doing an awesome Google search, and Games Radar has the total breakdown of all these different years. There is a small mention of 2007, which they have at number 2.
No,
number 2. 1998 is listed as number 1, and looking at these titles, Ocarina of Time, Pokemon Red Blue, Banjo-Kazooie, StarCraft, Metal Gear Solid, those are almost impossible to compete with.
No, what 2007 definitely, for my money, is definitely.
Well, your money can go
that,
away. So. It doesn't count.
My money was spent on those games. It wasn't spent on as many back in 1998. I could tell you that for sure.
Did you ever think about what the worst year in gaming might be?
No, and I don't really want to. Although there's been a few pretty lousy years as well.
I think my money's got to be on 2013. Xbox, PlayStation 4 launch, Wii U comes out,
and that was pretty bad because you saw some as far as the changeover in generations. a lot of companies decided to check on out and put some garbage titles out on as the 360 and PS3 started to wane. Rob, you still there? I'll just say this in regards, now that I have you back, that
I just couldn't take it anymore. I had to leave.
There you go. You had to check on out. But as far as the worst year in gaming, yeah, I just saw it as a lot of these developers just put out some junk at the tail end of the 360 and PS3 era, and they weren't ready with good products to come out, and whatever they tried to put out quickly onto a PS4, Xbox One format really didn't cut up the mustard, because it's the beginning of that generation as well. So I think I agree with you on that one. I think we'll come to an agreement on that one as far as that's concerned.
Well, I hope everybody that's listening got to hear some alternatives to Gerald's wacky theory about 2007 possibly being a landmark year in gaming. I certainly did the heavy lifting in that segment, I think, showcasing a number of other years that were clearly better suited for the title of Best Year in Gaming.
No.
But you can let us know what you think the best year in gaming was, of course, on Facebook and on Twitter. Gerald, what are the addresses for them?
Well, first of all, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com, and then popculturecosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source, like you said, on Facebook and Twitter.
There you go. So weigh in and let us know. And which year that I mentioned was more right than anything that Gerald said would be greatly appreciated.
Wicked. Well, thanks again, Rob. I truly appreciate you dropping by and dropping all that great knowledge upon us as well. We truly appreciate, again, you filling in for Josh, and I look forward to talking to you on next week's Cosmic Crossfire as well. So definitely looking forward to that. And again, to everybody out there, we just hope you have a tremendous Thanksgiving Day weekend, and we look forward to giving you an update on what's going on with Coco and so much more as on our Monday show as well.
Great. It's been awesome having the chance to jump in for Josh, and maybe we can bump him off a little bit more and slide on into the chair. No offense, Josh.
There you go. There you go, indeed. So for Rob McCallum, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day right here in the PCC Multiverse.
That was part of my deal. You wouldn't do that on the show.
Well, I broke the deal. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great day.